Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today I have with me someone I've known close to 20 years, I think.
Yep,
Back in the day where I used to live off protein bars and powders and all that
that's
shit. And
right.
then before I
Back
knew about food. Because
back when Aussie bodies was a thing.
yeah, when you're 18 and 19, you already know everything. So
That's right.
that
That's
was
right.
that's where I was at until I was humbled by yeah. But I'm joined with Monica Allan today, who I've known for a long time. She's been in the industry for a long time, at least 20 years that I'm aware of. But
Yeah.
Monica, I like the listeners to get to know you, so have a deeper sense of connection to who you are and what your background influences are, your viewpoints, and everything we're going to cover today. Can you share an overview of what has shaped you as a woman, and then what's led you to putting so much time and energy into studying naturopathy, botanicals, iridology, reiki, and flower essences?
God, what's shaped me as a woman?
Not
I
protein bars.
guess I guess I grew up um my education around herbal medicine started well before I left school. So my mum worked in a health food shop. So I guess I kind of grew up with herbalists and naturopaths around me for many, many years. So I guess I knew I wanted to be in this industry from the word go. There was not really doctors in in my memory. We used to maybe go to a doctor, get their advice, take their script, thanks very much, off we'd go back to see the herbalist or the naturopath to get treated. So I think for me it was probably because it's all I've ever known. It's been what my mum taught me, and I grew up with paddocks behind me, so we were,
Where
down in
was
the
that?
dirt.
Where did you
uh,
grow up?
I lived in Glenfield, so
Oh,
around Holsworthy there was a farm that the farmer still worked at the time, and it was right at my back fence. So I had the horses and the cows and the pigs and the chickens and all that sort of thing right over my back fence. So I used to spend a lot of time getting down with the soil microbiome, I guess,
mhm.
and the dirt and the mud and climbing trees. And I think just being with nature is just all I've really ever known. So, and then, like I said, with my mum working in a health food shop, it was just natural for me to gravitate towards taking, I don't know, we all know echinacea.
Mm.
So when you get a head cold, you take echinacea. You don't necessarily go down to the doctors and get a script for an antibiotic. So, and then obviously leaving school because I'd worked with herbalists that had studied with Dorothy Hall,
Mm.
which is where I graduated from, 2001. Um, I just went straight out of school and went into herbal medicine college. And once I graduated from there, it was because Dorothy Hall was such a well-known iridologist, I went on to study more iridology. And I don't know, I guess my studies just continued from there, and I just kept going and going. And I don't think you ever stop learning in this industry, do you? You just keep on learning every day.
Yeah. And when was there any catalyst which I guess really steered you into that, or was it just always, as you said, something you've always just known?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, there wasn't anything else in my path. There wasn't anything else I wanted to do. I think I've just been born to do this. I felt it was a passion from a very early on. I felt a calling for it. Um, and even now, I think to myself, there was a day, obviously, I work in a retail environment as well as working in clinical setting, but back in a day where I thought the store that I worked in might have closed, I thought, well, what would I do?
Mm.
I don't think I could go back and work from a pharmaceutical setting
Mhm.
because it doesn't have the same feel for me as working in a health food store and people coming in for that holistic approach and all
Was that
things
where I met
organic
you
and
in
natural.
the? Was that where I met you in the
Yeah, the health food
pharmacy?
shop, but it was the health food shop, but it was many, many different health food shops before the name that we've got now.
Yeah, yeah.
with Nourish. So yeah, no, it's always been natural medicine. It's always been herbal medicine uh, and iridology and now Reiki. And yeah, I love it.
Okay. So it's clear to me that medical doctors, chiropractors, osteos, etc., had much more conscious awareness of the connection between inside and outside of the body, and a lot of deeper knowledge into, the nutrition, the herbal, botanical remedies up until about 1950. And after that, there seems to be a progressive loss of that training and the knowledge. Do you know where it sort of branched off from these different approaches?
I guess never really studying in those areas. I can't say for sure, but I think there are still, like I see a chiropractor myself who does a lot of intuitive work and
Mm.
work with, goodness me, I can't think of the word right now. Just connecting to the body and still using supplements and kinesiology is what I was looking for. So still using kinesiology to sort of see what the body is asking for as a first and second priority, and still working very intuitively with that sort of thing. So I think there's still a lot of them out there, and I just think it just depends on whether you wanted to study in a holistic way in your field, or whether you want to study the way you're taught in university, I guess, because obviously in the universities they're taught a very medical way of approaching things. And I guess that the more there's barriers now with, you can get sued for anything, can't you, these days? So I think making sure that they practice within their boundaries and things like that has probably kept them in their own lane, so to
Yeah, okay.
speak.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think there's still probably quite a few that are still practicing a little bit more holistically. It just depends on who you see.
Yeah, maybe they can't really um, announce it
Yeah,
to a lot of
yeah,
people. Yeah.
they probably just work within their scope, from paper, but then in clinic, depending on who they're working with, if they can tell the person's a little bit more open to
Yeah.
natural medicine, then they maybe would look at offering the kinesiology and the more holistic approaches to it. So
Well, I mean, most people have heard words such as, is it iridology or iridology?
it's pronounced iridology, but most people know it as iridology, so it's really either way.
Okay, so
I
most
still
people,
flip, to be honest.
okay, good to know. I won't go into that. So most people have heard these words like iridology, Reiki,
Yep,
flower essences, homeopathy, but I
yep,
find very few people understand what they are, and they don't really normally investigate it for themselves, often thanks to things we can't talk
yeah,
about.
yeah,
But they call it woo woo or airy fairy and fake and
yep.
all that kind of stuff. So, can you explain these modalities and why they've actually been around a lot longer than our actual current systems?
Well, I mean, the first systems were, back in the day, the hospitals in the very early days were a homeopathic hospital. So you'd obviously be treated homeopathically.
Mm,
But you only have to, like, the more research you do into people like Hippocrates and,
mm,
herbal medicine has been around, Chinese medicine has been around for like hundreds of thousands of years, really,
mm,
dates back centuries. Um, and plants are still used now in pharmaceuticals, but
mm,
unfortunately they pull the plant apart and use one part of the plant, to make things like aspirin, I guess.
mm.
So there's heaps of different pharmaceuticals that contain parts of a natural medicine plant. um, and I think, these days we look at it and say that we need to work making sure that we've got references to everything, and everything's been scientific evidence behind it and
Mm.
things like that. But you only have to look at history itself to know that the scientific evidence and the evidence base is there from Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and Western herbal medicine for hundreds and hundreds of years. I think that's enough evidence for me to say we've been treating with herbs, and we were given herbs on the earth. You only have to walk out your back door and see dandelion. It's all around us. It's all around us. Aloe vera is growing in your backyard next to your outdoor dunny. So, and that just goes to show you what aloe vera does for the internal systems of the bowel. So I think, this is how I was taught with Dorothy. Like I was very lucky, blessed, honored to have been able to have been taught by someone like Dorothy Hall. And she taught us a very holistic, traditional, intuitive way of looking at plants and looking at their color and looking at how that color works within the body systems, and how the iris corresponds with those plants, with the different colors that we see in the iris. So I think I still practice a very traditional way of doing things, although, like I said, now everything's very evidence-based. And you've got to be keeping up with the times, and you've got to do your research, and you've got to stay up with all of the new technology that they're using. So I still use testing and things like that. But, plant medicine, flower essences, iridology, it's all been around. There's so many different versions of iridology, and I guess it's still emerging now. And even with herbal medicine, natural medicine, even with you do what you're doing all the time, you still have to go to courses. You're still learning the new research all the time. So I don't think it's going away, and I think it's just getting stronger the more that people, unfortunately, aren't always getting the answers that they want from their doctors, and that's when people like you and I find that they come to us.
Well, I get a lot of patients coming to me, they've been on this supplement and it's supposed to cure everything they've got. But years ago, I did research into supplements and found that they used one isolate from one plant or one herb. And there's no such thing as an isolated vitamin in nature.
No.
They come in complexes. So they've used this isolate from the supplement. They've ramped it up to make it so concentrated that it's supposed to be the most potent thing for that particular thing. But for that particular thing, that needs other things, which inhibits and affects the absorption of the other things. It goes on to a weird,
And then you get the cascade effect of the things that it causes issues with if you only use an isolate of something and not the whole plant.
Yeah, not saying there's not a place for it, but I think people just need to be aware of it. But also what a lot of supplement companies and chemists will do is they'll take the plant, as you said, they'll rip it apart to find out sort of how
manipulate it
works. But then they'll create a synthetic version of it because they have to do it in mass production.
Yeah.
And that's how they found.
Don't get me wrong. Like even in like going into a health food shop, most of the vitamins that you get over the counter are a synthetic version. Like your B vitamins, they're generally a synthetic version. You can get natural versions, and that's the reason why I try to work more with herbal medicine and liquid herbs. And as we know, the saying, food is medicine. So we try and work as much as we can through foods, and there is a time and place for supplements, whether it be a natural supplement or a pharmaceutical. If I need brain surgery, I'm not going to go to my naturopath or my herbalist. Sometimes those sort of things are necessary, and I definitely know that that area is saving lives. But for your general day to day and staying healthy and well, rather than running down to your doctor to get an antibiotic, which we know the overuse now of antibiotics, and we can see the effect that it's having on the body not even just becoming so immune to all different forms of antibiotics that it doesn't help with a cold or flu. And that's, I guess, the reason why we get to the end of the season when we get the super flu and we get influenza A and B strains, and it's grown muscles and it's grown legs, and that's the reason why it can become so strong in the body. So rather than running down to the pharmacy or running to your doctor and grabbing a prescription for an antibiotic that covers you for so many different things, because they haven't actually spent the time to find that that real root cause of the problem and find out whether it's bacterial or viral or what they're actually dealing with, then that's where I look at natural medicine and being able to boost the good microbiome in the body and boost the immune system so that it is a little bit more aggressive to fight off the bad guys when they try and come knocking on the door.
It's also,
I guess,
effective not only fighting off the bad guys but helping out the good guys as well.
That's right. Yep.
Whereas
like your gut is a garden, and you've got to weed out. You've got to get out the weeds of the garden, but you've still got to keep on replacing the good stuff. And that's, like you're saying, it's still really important to make sure you're feeding your good microbiome.
Well, not only do we need to weed the garden, but we need to stop having dance parties in the garden too, because a lot of the cold and flu symptoms actually just come from burnout.
That's right. Yep.
So
yep.
It's all about that particular balance that it's different for everyone, but it's roughly, 80% good.
Yeah.
You can handle the 20% bad.
That's it. There's an 80-20 rule, but it's just a matter of, and in this day and age, our life is so busy that even if I prescribed, what do they call it, like the Dr. Seven, and I said, go and get some natural sunlight. Like, the body is being given the ability to create vitamin D naturally for a reason, because it's so super important. So take off your sunglasses, sit in the sunlight for the morning and get some morning sun, expose your skin to the sun and get vitamin D, because it's not just a vitamin, it's a hormone. Take your shoes off, ground yourself in nature, do deep breathing, gratitude, journal, diary writing, like there are so many just basic things. Drink good, purified, filtered water that's not containing a whole heap of fluoride and other chemicals that you only have to go looking now to find out what's in normal tap water. Just those basics will help someone so much before we even, take a deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, the water thing could be a whole episode to itself.
That's right.
If we get technology sorted, maybe we'll go there. Clearly not today, but
no.
But yeah, it took us about 20 minutes to get this.
That's right. Yep.
Going, but
both technologically challenged.
We get there in the end. On the tap water, a lot of people don't. A lot of people have been told that fluoride's really good for the teeth, and I've had many discussions with dentists about this. And I recently had, probably 3 months ago, I think, I had a discussion with a biological dentist.
Yeah.
And I asked him about the whole, and I read this in research papers and books years ago. I wanted to hear it from him. He knows more about that stuff than I do. And he just said that the fluoride they put in our tap water is actually industrial waste, and it's classed as an S6 poison.
Right.
S7 is the deadliest poison that we can come up with as a human species. He said the fluoride that's actually beneficial is calcium fluoride, which is naturally found in rainwater.
Yep.
And all that kind of stuff. So
I think you have to really break down the different versions. I mean, even in the Lancet, which is a medical journal, going back a fair few years ago, they actually did categorize fluoride as a neurotoxin for the brain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a medical journal. That's not naturopathic herbal medicine woo-woo, like you said, that's how sometimes we might be perceived. But that's a medical journal saying that it's a neurotoxin for the brain. So whilst certain versions of fluoride might have their place, for me, I opt out when it comes to water, and I have a filter at home, and I purify and filter and realkalize and remineralize. And my boys only will drink that type of water now, because I think they're so used to it. If it tastes like tap water, they know straight away. You can taste the difference.
Well, it's funny. I recently been to Germany and had tap water there. You can drink the tap water there, and it tastes so much different. It tastes like filtered water here.
I can imagine.
Interesting thing, Europe banned fluoride in drinking water.
Ah, well, there you go. That's why it tastes so much better.
And the dentist I was talking to, he also said the fluoride's only really helpful if it's applied topically
Yeah.
onto the tooth, not drunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a nice little tangent.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that they had banned it, so that's interesting.
Mm.
Move
That's
over
what,
to Germany and you can save yourself on a water purifier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a long way to go for a drink cup of water, but
That's it.
sometimes we've got to do what we've got to do. So, would you say from a naturopathic perspective, what do you see a common thread of what most people are doing that's going against, I guess, what they're trying to do?
Oh, I don't think there's any one given. I think having too much stress in life is
Mm,
probably the biggest. We can see it's just a cascade effect of how stress
mm,
affects our lifestyle and our body, and eventually dis-ease. If you
mm,
look at breaking down the word disease and you look at it, it's dis-ease on the body.
mm,
We all live in a really stressed fight and flight state. Um, and we're all trying to please the man, the boss, the
mm,
company, the family, the whoever. So we're all just running around crazy. No one sits down and eats
mm,
and really thinks about digesting their food. They're eating on the run. Like, you only have to look at all the reps that are working out of their car all day long and just driving from place to place, and maybe stopping in a big shopping center and grabbing some fast food and then keeping on going and eating it in the car whilst they're trying to drive, whilst they're also trying to talk on the telephone through their Bluetooth, of course.
mm,
To try and do 10 dozen things at once, and we're not stopping, and we're just not taking the time to live
mm.
the way we were meant to. So by the time people get to a naturopath, a herbalist, a nutritionist, whoever they're going to see, they're already, number one, they've probably not gotten their answers from the doctor, or they've not really ever wanted to go and see the doctor, whatever that is.
Mm.
And then they're already in a pretty bad state. So trying to unravel that tangled web isn't always a one-step process. There's
No.
multiple steps to it. But fortunately, I think the tide is turning and more people are starting to realize how important it is um, to eat a rainbow of colors and to use some more natural medicine and support their gut health. Like, the gut is the hub, the center of the body. And without keeping our gut healthy, 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in the gut.
Mm.
So if we're not looking after our body, then that's when the breakdown starts.
Yeah, I think it
So,
probably starts in, like, technically would start before that with the thought process that
mm,
they get caught into the hamster wheel of that routine of deadlines and
mm,
everything's got to be done yesterday and I've got to be perfect for this person, I've got to impress that person. So they're wearing different masks for different people,
mm,
different situations, which ultimately creates what Carl Jung would call a shadow. And that
mm,
shadow drains the other self and it just goes cascades from there. But then we run out of time in our day because we've got to make all the money, right, and impress
mm-hmm.
people we don't really like. And with that, we can't rush around and digest food. That's one or the other.
No,
the, the
no,
digestive system requires rest,
that's it.
and the digestive system, as far as I'm aware, I think is it the second most energy consuming system of the body.
Mm,
So every time you have a big meal, you always feel tired because that's your body
that's
saying,
right.
slow down. We need to
Yeah,
process all of this.
yeah.
Hopefully it's real food so it knows what to do with it. But if it's the fake foods, a lot of these I get all the time the fast meals, what are they called? The microwave meals and
Oh, yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and they just shove it, like they basically inhale it
Mm,
and then go straight back to what they were doing. Realize, you know, and a lot of people as well are constipated,
mm-hmm.
literally holding on to shit. And
Yeah.
there's a whole mental episode with that. But then,
But if you think about where that's coming from, if you think about why we are tight asses, literally, is because our bowel is a large muscle, and we are always in fight and flight. So we're always in not yet, not now, don't do it yet, don't stop yet, just keep going, not now. And our body's keeping on saying the same thing. So that peristaltic and bowel muscle is just holding on all the time.
well,
So
the sphincters go into lockdown because they have the sphincters are highly psychogenic. So they either think, well, I'm running from a lion, physiologically speaking, and they're going to typically respond by completely clamping down or completely opening up.
And you think of why we're in that state. It's because we're in a state of stress. And that goes back to, when I'm treating with a client, I'm generally always going to work with nervous system dysregulation first. I don't think there is a time that I'm working with a client that I'm not working with nervous system dysregulation in some form type, whether they know it or not, whether they're an internalizer or an externalizer. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So for me, it is literally word vomit. But for a lot of people that don't even recognize how stressed they are, and that's, like I said, that's the reason why I'm looking, in natural medicine, we're looking at the whole body, much like what you're doing. But I'm looking at the way people fidget when they come and see me. And when I ask them, if I asked you to close your eyes and tell me how stress affects you, and they're either scratching at their head or they're rubbing their hand across their chest or they're holding onto their tummy, and that shows me where they're holding onto their stress and where it's an overactive thought pattern or it's old trauma or it's in their bowel. So there's so many ways of looking at where we're holding onto our stress.
Many, many ways. I find people are often, I can give two quick examples. That one lady came to me, she thought she was cool AF, really chill. She came across really calm and whatever.
Yeah.
And I want to ask just to take her radial pulse. Her hand was shaking.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, what's going on with that? She goes, it's always done that. I'm like, okay. Anyway, I went to her, I did like a quick physical assessment, and her blood pressure was normal.
Yeah.
Her pulse was 130 beats a minute, but she only had pulses in her upper periphery, not her. She had no pulse in her legs. So that's peripheral. The peripheral vascular system is really struggling there. But for her, like in someone else, that might show up as a headache. Someone else, that might show up as anxiety. Someone else, it could be knee pain.
That's right. It manifests differently.
And for her, it was more of a dysregulation in her menstrual cycle. So it shows up differently for not only for many people, for many different reasons as well. We all have our own capacity to buffer the stresses of the day. But I think largely as well, a lot of people do all the things that we're talking about, the rushing around, the inhaling of the food and all that kind of stuff, because they're told to. And for me, in my investigations, that really activates the child archetype within the person. And
well, I guess, you look at it as also, sorry, I just cut you off there. It's programmed in it from our kids, like I've got, like I said, 2 boys now, both in high school. But they will say to me, I don't get a chance to eat at school, Mum, because I've got to play. There's no time for play anymore, whether it be for a child or an adult. Like, we don't get to just sit down and do what we want to do all the time. They're in school, they're learning, they get a half an hour to eat and then play, and then they get another half an hour to eat and then play, and then they've got to go back to working. And I think that's programmed into all of us that, we get out of school and we go into work, and we have a limited time to play, and the rest of the time it's all work.
And so I think if we play too much, we feel guilty because we haven't been productive.
That's right. Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
story we tell ourselves.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you've got to
Um,
be productive all day long.
so, the eyes are referred to by some as the windows into your health.
Yeah,
My understanding is that now we call iridology
yeah,
is probably is it used more as a diagnostic tool than treatment? What's the
yeah,
mechanism
yeah.
behind
It's
it?
absolutely a diagnostic tool. It's not in any way, and none of us that are using iridology or are iridologists should be using it as a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's staying in our lane and using your other, you know, modalities that you may have behind you, alongside using iridology as a technique, much like tongue analysis, nail analysis, facial, looking at the facial features and looking at where the intestines sit in the face, or where the stomach sits, or where the pancreas is. And yeah, just and reading it as a map and getting an idea of the family history
Mm.
and where those possible disease pathways could happen for that individual person. I mean, you only have to look at DNA and say to someone in your family history, what are the the health concerns that your family has experienced, and they'll be high blood pressure, high cholesterol. There's been heart attacks. There's been strokes. They're always going to tell you these sort of things. But I guess with iridology, we're looking at using the iris to give us the idea to see where these disease pathways could lead through
Mm-hmm.
fiber structure, through the color, through the shape of what we know in iridology as the collarette or the autonomic nerve wreath, but to the everyday person, it's the stomach, the bowel, and that connection that has to the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Um, and there's a lot in iridology which tells me about someone's emotional status right there, or just in general the way they are as a person. Are they an internalizer? Are they, an external person? Do they put it all out there? Are they a bit of a hermit crab? Do they like to stay at home? Are they very outgoing and just need to be around people all the time? So for me, I'm using it as a tool to help me when I'm working with clients. Because a lot of people will come and see me for iridology, and I'm not asking them to put out their palms. I'm not saying, give me your palms, I'm going to do a palm reading. And that's what a lot of people think it is. So they'll kind of sit there and their hands are folded, and you can tell their body language is really closed off. Um, and that's where I can use iridology and sort of go, okay, well, this person obviously is a little bit doubtful, but let's go and have a look what the iris is telling me about what's going on in certain organ zones. And you only have to give them a few bits and pieces of what's going on that you can see right there plainly in the iris,
Mm.
as far as any health concerns, liver, gallbladder, hormone, back problems, um, where they hold their stress in their shoulders. Like even now, I'm sitting here and I can see myself in the camera that I'm holding my shoulders up. So, you can ask them straight away, where are you holding your stress? What's going on with the liver? And you can see their eyes sort of flick over, and it's like, how did they know that? And it's not, I'm not a palm reader, but I am using the iris to tell me what those possible pathways could be, or where their family history may lie as far as disease.
Have
And
you have you done much study into the organs and related emotions?
yeah, as far as how they connect, as far as liver and gallbladder and anger and resentment and
Yeah.
chest and lung and heart and grief. Yeah, I think that's all a big thing with iridology as well. There's emotional iridology, and there's your integrated, like I studied through Dorothy Hall originally, but then I went on to study with Tony Miller, who does her own program with, or looking at all over the world. And now that we are a very big multicultural country,
Mm.
and how many different color irises we may be presented with, and what they all see differently, and what all those different cultures may be experiencing as their main health concerns. Before we even look at that individual person, we're looking at color, their health concerns coming from the cultural type, the foods that they're eating, their environmental exposures, Um, and then you go into the emotional version of iridology. I studied with a guy over in the UK that does more the emotional feeling, thinking type. And, you can go into all of that as well. And then even just when I'm talking to a client or I've been working with them for ages and I'm thinking, okay, we're not getting to the problem. There's nothing wrong with your liver.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with your liver, but you're angry. You're really angry
Yeah.
and you're holding a lot of resentment. And I think that's where I moved into, for me, I moved into the Reiki as an energetic pathway for so many people holding trauma. I don't care who you are or what you say, everyone is holding past trauma from past generations. And those are energetics. We are all energy. You only have to look at running water or the wind blowing against you. It's all an energy. And using those energies to help clear out the emotional trauma, because sometimes I can't get to really helping that person if I'm not working on the emotional aspect.
Mm. Such a huge component, probably one of the most overlooked aspects of not only health but also rehabilitation as
Mm-hmm.
well. Years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
was working with an athlete who got injured doing their thing, and the rehab got to a certain point, and then it just sort of plateaued.
Mm.
And then she kept whinging or complaining about how much pain and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, this has worked with everyone for the last 15 years. What am I
Yeah.
missing? What's
Yeah.
And what I really kind of found out through some investigation is that she enjoyed being injured. She
Mm.
was sabotaging her own program because when she's not injured, she's got to go perform at the highest level. That's her job.
She's got to show people how capable she actually is.
So the injury was kind of like a mental holiday for her,
Mm.
and she was enjoying being on holiday. So she kept telling herself the same story. It still hurts, still hurts, still hurts.
Yeah.
Even though you can press the tissue, you can mobilize the joint, you can stretch this, strengthen that. Physically, nothing was really there. But the story she kept telling herself, she kept reinforcing that same feedback loop, which
Mm.
created the pain and kept the injury there.
But could you look at that from also like in an emotional aspect, like the lack of confidence? Like she just needs to tell herself, I've got this, I'm confident. This
Yeah,
is where I would work with bark flowers or flower essences to work with the emotional, tapping into the emotional side and giving them confidence.
so yeah, the buck flowers, I did recommend those to her. Whether she got them, a different story altogether.
Mm.
She's, to her that's a bit woo woo. So yeah, that is what it was. But what I worked with her was the psyche, because the psyche is the most influential player, and the psyche obviously influences the emotions influence the psyche, and those thoughts and emotions have a huge impact on the tissue.
Mm.
And like if you think of a stress, all of a sudden you tighten up, you tense, a lot of people hide their head in their shoulders or clench their fists, clench their jaw, grind their teeth, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's interesting you say
And she
that
just,
because my one of my teachers, Tony, the iridology teacher that I worked with after Dorothy, she has her one of her theories is your issues are in your tissues, and that sort of relates to what you were saying about the tissue.
yeah. Well, I mean, the tissues tell the story
Mm.
a lot of the times. Our emotional anatomy, if you will, gets stored in the soft tissue. That's the fascia, the muscles, the organs, and it's our overall posture. The skeletal system portrays our underlying psychological theme. So you'll notice people with depression are almost always hunched forward. It's like they're hugging their thymus gland, just underneath, behind their sternum. And someone who's got really low self-esteem will hug their solar plexus because they're always in protection mode. But then
Yeah.
that shows up as a similar posture.
Yeah.
Monica, as we are currently transitioning into summer, there's a lot of pollen and all kinds of crap in the air.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of herbal remedies do you think are must haves for people who are really sensitive at this time of year?
Oh, I don't really think that to me there's a one size fits all because I don't work necessarily with one size fits all. I did just do a bit of a something on my socials on just foods and things that you can keep in the house that might be a little bit more handy for people who are sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can look at certain foods like your pineapple, really rich in bromelain. You know, certain herbs and spices like your ginger, really good for
Mm-hmm.
inflammation and things like that. So, I mean, I don't think there's any specific one size fits all there, but N-acetylcysteine we kind of know has been had a really big push in the last couple of years, using it as a part of a COVID protection, phase two detox. Previous to all of the hype that it had around that time, we were using, well, not we, the industry, I guess, and the way it's the studies behind it have been done are for using it for inflammation, and using it for colds and flus, or opening the chest to airways, chest, lungs, people with asthma, people who are sensitive to sinus issues and hay fever. So N-acetylcysteine can always be something you can use around this time of the year as a good one. But like I said, just considering how many different foods are available to us for allergies and hay fever. And the other thing I always go back to is if you do have issues with allergy, hay fever, sinus, why have you got that and what's the trigger? And again, going back to looking at that trigger that's causing that for you so that you can treat the underlying issues, which is why I like to do like I said, I'm a bit interwoven with still being old school with old school herbal medicine and using iridology and using just a really good questionnaire to ask all the questions to find out what's going on for people. But then, the gut test can be really invaluable to find out what sort of inflammation's going on in the gut, what sort of leaky gut they've got going on, and then from there, treating the actual underlying problems. So, you've got
Mm.
essential oils you can use. There's garlic, lavender is nice. Like I said, pineapple for the bromelain. So there's heaps of different things, but I like to do it as an approach of working with each individual person and deciding what the best fit for that person is.
I always find it interesting with nature. You know how certain foods come in certain seasons, right?
Yeah.
The the most common what I found clinically is that the foods people need to stay healthy are always in season.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, eating to
And
season
like
for sure.
nature knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Nature knows what she's doing and provides everything we need. But it's the specific nutrients and vitamins and minerals, etc., that are in abundance at a specific time of year is what we actually need for that time of year.
Yeah.
Like we don't need mangoes in winter, so we don't have mangoes in winter.
Yep.
But yet you go to the, your average Coles or Woolies, and they've got certain fruits and vegetables available 12 months.
Ah, yes,
So
the
first you've got
joys
to
of
ask, well, where did that
genetically
come from?
modification.
We love glyphosate as much as the next person, but it's like to me that's just really obvious, and I've always thought that was just logical. But then people eat bananas all year round,
Yeah.
and blueberries all year round, and there's apples all year round. yet apples are
If they're not in
predominantly of
season, they're
the
generally
cold.
not going to have that nutrient density that, oh, that's another whole
Mm,
kettle of fish if you want to go into, you know, how well our soils are kept and the mass production of foods these days. So there's never going to be the same level of nutrients that we used to have, if we want to go,
mm,
going down the horticulture route. But making sure that you are eating in season, you're going to have the nutrient density because it's grown at the right time for the right season.
mm,
But again, this is where I look at, using things like iridology. I'll look at what body systems are responding to certain plants and certain herbs. And that's why I'll suggest
mhm,
you need to eat an abundance of yellow, you need to eat an abundance of red. We all look at, things like our blueberries and our red foods as being rich in iron, or, certain foods being rich in a
mm.
certain nutrient. So, looking at, like you said, nature knows best, Mother Nature knows best, and our nutrients are there in the foods, even by looking at the color of them and going by the color of
Mm.
the foods that you need, depending on the nutrient or vitamin or mineral that you may be a bit deficient in.
Speaking about the color, do you know much about the chakra systems?
Yeah, yeah, I do that a little bit with the Reiki. When I'm working with Reiki, I'm more getting people to work with choosing innately which one of their chakras are out when I'm doing my Reiki. So I get them to
Mm,
choose based on essential oils or based on bark flowers, so that they are kind of choosing for me, just vibrationally, what their body is saying they need. But yeah, I do look at the colors based on chakra.
because it's always interesting when I'm working with a client and they ask me about diet as an example. I'll always ask, what kind of foods are you craving? And I had a lady the other
Mm,
day who was craving steak.
yep.
I said, okay, we'll follow that. Like, what does that represent? Now,
Mm,
steaks, well, let's say it's red,
yep.
and it's a spectrum of colors, not like red.
Yep.
And she's up in her head all the time, so red's very grounding. Root chakra.
Yep.
Someone going through relationship issues might start developing a craving for oranges
Yep.
because that's second chakra,
Yep.
or yellow foods, green foods. It all, I find it hormonally, they start craving the food of the color that they're most deficient in, or they need the most TLC
Yeah, for
with. And
sure.
it's always just been a really interesting correlation
Yeah, and
with
that's
that.
why with the essential oils, I generally get them to choose an oil to either apply to, pulse points, or just to breathe in. I'll put it in the burner whilst we're doing the Reiki session, so that that's kind of
Hmm.
opening that pathway so that we can work more in that area and sort of unblock, because
Mm,
generally it's got to do with the blockage. Even when I'm working with
mm,
people who have issues with the throat, there's no physiological problem. You don't have an issue with your thyroid. We've had all the checks done. Why is there still something showing in thyroid? And then we go back to,
mm,
well, have you been using your voice? Is there a certain person that you're not speaking up to? Is there
mm.
a voice that you're not being allowed to use at the moment for whatever reason? So everything's
Yeah.
interwoven, whether it be the color or the body system we're talking about. So yeah, it's definitely all interwoven for sure.
Mon, you also do a lot of work with kids. What
Yes.
percentage of childhood health challenges do you feel emanate from, let's say, genetic influences versus diet and lifestyle versus, the environment they were brought up in?
Ooh. Um, I think the big one is, you can look at, it's all, I guess it's all going to go back to gut health. It doesn't matter what practitioner you talk to, it's all going to go back to gut health. But, you know, going
Mm,
right back to those two little seeds of egg and sperm, it depends on the health of the parents previous to conception to, the best version that we can get from our child, before we even bring them
mm,
into the world. And then obviously we start looking at foods and things like that. So obviously, depending on gut health and depending on parents' genes and things like that, how much of the work that they've done to clean their body and get their body as best prepared for conception. Because
Mm,
even though men think they've only got 5 minutes of fame previous to the baby being created, they're actually still 50% of the finished product. So there's still a
mm,
lot of work to be done there. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of you know past history and genetics. That would be, asthma, psoriasis, eczema, even the gene of acne. If your parents, one or both of your parents, suffered with acne during their teen years or even adult years for a lot of women, then that could be obviously
mm,
something that we see with kids growing up.
mm,
Ear, nose, and throat issues are another really big one. Sinus allergies, again, that's going back to gut health, and working on making sure the gut's working as best it can. And diet and lifestyle, unfortunately, it is a huge one because to me,
mm,
this is a personal thing. This is not something that I necessarily say to everyone that you must do. But for me, it's turning the dietary pyramid on its head, and
mm,
sort of looking at it as the opposite way around. A lot of our contributing factors, and there is evidence to state this, it's not just me talking a bit of, my own thoughts. There's evidence that shows now that non-alcoholic fatty liver disorder, or someone that shows in blood test results that they've got fatty liver, a lot of that
mm,
is driven by the overuse of grains in our diet.
mm,
And obviously, genetically modification of what is happened to our grains. You can go overseas. I think we spoke about this earlier. You can go overseas and you can eat,
mm,
pasta and pizza to your heart's content and actually still lose weight.
mm,
Unfortunately, whatever is happening with our grains here, and we talk about, the spray herbicides and pesticides that are sprayed on them, can really have a big impact on our diet. So, mums and dads are busy. Most women and men are both working, if not at least part time, both of them full time, and then trying to get the
mm,
kids. I know myself, I like a taxi service. I pretty much finish doing one thing and I race off to the next thing. And one child's got to be on this side of the Shire and the other one's got to be on the other side of the Shire. And we've got football and we've got soccer and we've got jiu-jitsu and we've got wrestling. And, it's never ending.
mm,
And for a busy parent to be able to fit that in and then still look after their children, their dietary needs, it's a big thing. And I recognize that. I always say to parents, if I'm working with the kids, just try and do one change this week. See how one change
mm,
goes. And then once we've nailed that, we make the next change. Because when you're making a change for your child, you're also making a change for yourself, because the parents have got to
mm,
coordinate that. So it's definitely got a lot to do with diet, and how what we see is healthy for our children. And then there's definitely still a big shift of how much work we do on ourselves if we are consciously decided we are going to have a child, and then doing the
mm,
work before that. The chemicals and the toxins, and that is stored in our tissues, if we want to go back to discussing tissues, and doing
mhm,
enough work to get rid of
mm,
high levels of heavy metals that are in our body, that are stored in brain tissue or fatty tissue, to get that out so that we don't have those issues going down into the next generations. But I love working with kids, because I think when you're working with kids,
yeah, I
you're
mean,
teaching them from an early age and you're instilling that from an early age. I know with my younger one, he always says to me,
mm,
"So, how do you think I've gone today, Mum? Have I eaten pretty healthy?" I think I've eaten pretty healthy. And he'll rattle off what he's had, because he can see the effects on, what is
mm,
a sometimes food versus, an everyday choice, and how that affects his
mm,
body if he doesn't make the right choices. So, it's about educating the kids on making good choices, and then getting them to be able to see how that responds to their body, and actually being in touch with, oh, okay, so my tummy's been a bit off today, or, I've woken up with hay fever symptoms or sinus, or my nose, I'm blowing my nose constantly. What have we eaten that's caused these effects? All the children with that are on the spectrum, or the neurodivergent children now, we look at, how much gluten are we eating? How much is that affecting our brain? Because that's got to do with neurodivergence. So,
Mm.
oh yeah, you could talk about that all day long as well.
We could. I would actually enjoy enjoy that. A lot of people don't realize as well with all the the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, all the sides sprayed on the food. They are massive hormonal disruptors to the human
Yes,
body,
huge
and
endocrine disruptors. Yeah.
people that spray that. I know this from being a greenkeeper. You have to wear like a hazmat suit just to spray it, but
Mm,
yet somehow it's safe enough to eat. And you know, every disease on some level comes from a hormonal disruption, dysregulation.
mm.
And I mean, the heavy metals in our environment, it's shockingly high. But I mean, metal is attracted to electricity, right? So where are the largest population of neurons in the body? It's the brain and the gut.
All right.
And
And the disruption to the gut brain axis is huge.
oh, well, yeah, I mean, most people. I remember, I think it was last week. I saw a patient brought her kid in because he was diagnosed with ADHD. I said, "How much sugar does he have?" "Oh, he eats so much sugar." It's okay. Well, who does the shopping? I do. Okay, so I can treat him by coaching you, essentially.
Yeah, that's the thing though, but
And
it's about realizing that the parents don't necessarily always know better, because what were they taught and
no,
what were their parents
mm,
taught?
mm, 100%. And you know what they call Alzheimer's now?
Oh, there's probably a couple of names that I could choose as choice. Seems though my dad passed of Alzheimer's and dementia. I've got a couple of
Well,
keywords that
they're
probably aren't
calling they're calling I think Alzheimer's, dementia, and there's another one that I can't think of, which is kind of ironic. Type 3 diabetes.
yeah, right.
And a lot of symptoms from Alzheimer's and dementia are almost identical to heavy metal toxicity.
Yeah. Yeah. And they, again, looking at grains and the mass production of grains and how grains affect our
Mm,
brain. Um,
mm,
I tell a lot of people to have a bit of a read of the Grain Brain, the book, The Grain Brain. It's been
yeah.
around for a while now, but it does really talk about the correlation of the effects of grains on our brain and the link between dementia and Alzheimer's that go back, 50, 60, 70 years now. But they maybe didn't
Mm,
have that. They couldn't really put that direct link in it. Now they really are getting that link. So when you look at all of the supplements that we're using to work with slowing the progression of Alzheimer's
mm,
and dementia, it's cutting back on grains. It's going more following
mm,
a Paleolithic style, hunter gatherer style diet. It's using things like coconut oil, MCT, that crosses the blood brain barrier, fish oil that crosses the blood brain barrier, turmeric that's working on the inflammation to the brain. So, all of these
mm.
things are very, yeah, it's all showing the link between it.
And also, you go to a restaurant and they advertise grain-fed steak or beef or whatever the cut is, like it's the superior thing on the menu, not realizing that these animals aren't designed to eat grains. So if they're not designed to eat grains and they're eating the stuff, then it's going to inflame the animal. That animal stores the toxins in fat. All mammals store their toxins in fat tissue. And then you go to the restaurant, you eat the most expensive cut is the fattiest cut of meat. So not only are we getting
Mm-hmm.
toxins from the grain, but also the inflammation from the inflamed tissue that we're eating. And we wonder why we're tired and sick all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Monica, if someone wants to book in with you and
Yes.
have a consultation, what does that typically look like?
Depends on what they're booking in for, I guess. It depends on whether they're wanting to do a full, full wellness naturopathic style consultation. Obviously, we're doing, an hour plus of a very big questionnaire that's, going the ins and outs of duck's bum, really. It's just wanting to know all of the background history. Otherwise, some people are coming to see me and they're just wanting to do iridology. So they're just fascinated by iridology and wanting to know more about what you can see through your eyes and how we can best then make suggestions for them for any possible pathways of disease, depending on how we eat, drink, think, live, and love. So obviously a full consultation is, we're doing a bit of iridology, but we're also working on questionnaires and maybe some testing and things like that. If it's iridology, we're just doing maybe a one-off and they might want to do some herbs. If it's Reiki, I normally am doing Reiki after I've done a consultation with them and I can see there's those emotional or traumatic PTSD style blockages, and we may want to work on that because you can't really
Mm.
fix the whole body itself until we kind of release some of that messy stuff that's been stored there. And we're all energy, we're all frequency, so that does make a really big difference. So I guess, yeah, it just really depends. I'm not a one size fits all type of practitioner, so I kind of just maybe either speak with someone in store, or I will, they'll give me a call. We'll do a 15-minute discovery call. We'll work out what best suits them, and we'll sort of design it from there. Because there is no one size fits all in life. We are all different. We come from different genes, different makeup, different environmental, different thought patterns. So, yeah, I just sort of still like to work individually. There's no packages, there's no set treatment plans, and the amount of time it's going to take to work on said issue that they are coming and presenting with is going to differ depending on how much work they're willing to put into it, from diet being ground
Mm.
zero to supplements or herbs or changing lifestyle. It all matters.
Mm. Well, Monica, this has been a lot of fun despite many technical difficulties that we've had. Uh, Feel free to share any final comments, resources, contact information, or other services as we close this out.
Yeah, look, you'll find me on a couple of social media platforms probably until the end of the year. I'll maybe be transitioning a little bit away from social media at the end of the year and maybe just working more with my website. Um, but you can definitely contact me through my website. Um, I'm available in store at, for those that are in the Shire. I'm in store at Nourish Cronulla a couple of days a week. I really love to be able to still touch base with customers on that level, as well as working with them one to one. Because there's obviously, just them coming in and wanting to ask the questions in store is the start of, wanting to go down that holistic pathway, I guess.
Mm.
So yeah, just, if someone's interested to reach out, it's generally best just to reach out via email or my website. Because some of those other platforms I'm probably not going to be manning as much in future. There's just too much social media to get your head around.
Yes, I'm with
Hopefully
you on
next
that one.
year, hopefully next year I'll be looking into doing, a couple of different women's circles or different group settings, to be able to work on, topic related subjects. So that's probably a next year thing, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. And if you do see Monica in Nourish, she loves a dad joke. So
And the dad jokes that I'm probably sprouting are probably either my dad's or some joke that you've been told by your dad.
I'm the joke teller of the family. I'm the sole source of comedy.
The antibodies.
All right. Well, thank you, Monica. Thank thank you for hanging in there with me. And I will
Yeah, I
probably see you
appreciate
very
having you
soon.
on. Okay. Thanks very much, Matt.
See ya.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Body's Compass podcast with Matt Sorensen and today's guest, Monica Allan. If you want to find out more, give us a follow on Instagram at The Body's Compass or swing by healhub.net. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.